Billionaires. What are the billionaires up to?
What are the billionaires up to?
Yeah.
Because we are going to be talking about Artificial, which is almost completed film about Sam Altman that Amazon have just dropped for reasons.
They'll have a good reason.
I'm sure they'll have a really great reason for doing that.
Yeah. We're also going to talk about, we're about to have a new Prime Minister, as you know.
Well, are we? We're recording this on Monday. Yes, I believe that today we will see the great drama-addicted, drama-afflicted British public will see that lectern for the 7th time in a decade.
But please don't panic, because we are not going to talk about politics. We're going to ask the question, is Andy Burnham cool?
But we're also going to say, can any politician ever be cool?
Yeah, but via his entertainment choices. We are not going to be talking about his monetary policies. We're going to be talking about his favourite albums.
That'll be a help. Right. And we're also talking about, Quentin Tarantino said there have been no good films recently. He said there have been no good films since the pandemic, which sparked a bunch of lists and things saying, but there have been. What about these ones? And we're going to talk a little bit about his comments, but a lot about the phenomenon of those lists, those cultural lists that you probably see a lot more of than you ever used to.
And I like the fact that you're saying that like it's a bad thing. So I should just add, I will also give everyone my top 3 films since the pandemic.
Oh my God, I know I have to do this. Okay, I will do this too. The Rest is Entertainment is presented by Octopus Energy. Now, fan mail is one of entertainment's strangest bargains. You send total devotion one way and the understanding that nothing may come back.
Certainly in our day, you would write to a film star or a singer. I wrote to Howard Jones, and maybe 3 months later, a sort of signed photo comes back that's clearly pro forma. You know, that you know Howard's never really looked at.
Steve Martin used to have the pro forma sort of thing, which we just leave blanks, like insert, like small detail to make a joke about how completely impersonal his personal reply to you was. And it was just like a standard thing.
Impersonal is interesting. That's why we're talking about this, because with Octopus Energy, you always can reply to their emails. And not only can you reply to them, they will go to the same small group of people who always deal with you. That's like unbelievable.
It's almost unprecedented that a company you're giving your money to will actually respond to you.
Are contactable in some way. Sam Altman, Amazon, a lot going on.
Okay, we have to do a little bit. Who is Sam Altman? Sam Altman
do you know what? Who is Sam Altman?
Exactly. Yeah. He has the cold, dead eyes of the boyfriend who joins in the search for the missing girlfriend, in my view. But he is also...
He's like a dislikable Elon Musk.
Yeah. He is, I think, potentially the worst, which really matters in that particular group. But he's the OpenAI sort of chief executive. OpenAI, obviously their most famous product is ChatGPT, but they have various other systems. Remember, it started, OpenAI, as a not-for-profit, sort of weirdly idealistic, altruistic enterprise. And in 2016, Sam Altman was saying, anyone familiar with the 1930s, it's absolutely chilling watching Trump in action. Anyway, by the time of the second inauguration, there he was in Oligarchs Row. OpenAI is no longer a non-profit. It is a rapacious capitalist entity. They've accepted a number of defense contracts that even Anthropic said, we can't in all conscience do this.
Even Anthropic.
Yeah. Anyway, so that's who Sam Altman is. And the film is called Artificial. And it is the story of, these are often quite helpful if you're trying to dramatise anything. There's 5 days in 2023 where Sam Altman is ousted at OpenAI and then he comes back.
Spoiler alert.
Spoiler alert. If you're catching up with the last few years on box set, I'm sorry. This film is directed by Luca Guadagnino, who did Call Me By Your Name, Challengers.
He's absolutely the real deal.
Yeah,
Couldn't be more of a real deal of a director at the moment.
Yeah. It's written by Simon Rich, who's a former SNL writer who's done various other things. It stars Andrew Garfield as Sam Altman. Also, I mean, the cast is a joke. It's also Monica Barbaro, Yuri Borisov from Anora. Ike Barinholtz as Elon Musk,
which is amazing. So
I have to see this.
Ike Barinholtz, if people didn't know him, he's the guy who plays Sal Saperstein on The Studio. So he's one of those.
Love him.
And he doesn't look unadjacent to Elon Musk. I'd never noticed it before, but the second
as I read it, I was like, I can't wait to see it. Okay, Jason Schwartzman, Cooper Hoffman, Sasha Mamet, Chris O'Dowd, Mark Rylance. It's sort of long and strong, this thing.
Yeah.
And it's nearly finished. It's at a sort of screening stage.
Long and strong. That's a cast list description.
Yes, like in a bridge hand. But it's...
like the Man City bench.
Yeah. In terms of what's happened, Amazon has dropped it. Amazon were making this film. I don't know what it's cost, something like 40 million,
40 million, they reckon, yeah.
And the decision has supposedly been made to drop it. They've said it might be better suited to another distributor.
And so Jeff Bezos, who of course is the ultimate boss of Amazon, has a friendship with Sam Altman. I think Sam Altman was at the Bezos-Sanchez wedding.
Wow.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Which we were not invited to. So they are friends. So, it's almost like something else is going on here.
The decision's been made by Mike Hopkins, we should say. He's the head of Prime Video and Amazon MGM Studios.
So can I ask you a question that we're all asking? Why would you finance a $40 million Luca Guadagnino movie? Why would you make the whole thing? Why would you get that stellar cast together? And then why would you, just before it's about to start, playing at festivals and stuff, why would you suddenly drop it?
Well, I mean, I suppose it comes down to who you want to believe. They think it would be better suited to another distributor. But what we have to say is that Amazon has a deepening relationship with OpenAI. A few months ago, they did a huge deal with OpenAI. All the deals with OpenAI involve people giving OpenAI billions. It's like one of the weirdest things about modern life. Amazon are basically giving a $50 billion investment to OpenAI. But last year, they did I think sort of 30 or 40, but 38 billion cloud partnership. And so, yes, I mean, it doesn't look great, does it, that they've got this far? The
story is they'd obviously commissioned this movie. They'd seen the movie, and word from inside the Amazon camp is it was a lot darker than we were imagining. And certainly the people who've seen it, they say the portrayal of Sam Altman and Elon Musk are particularly, I mean, brilliant. It's what people are saying, but particularly bleak and dark. And so Amazon saw this and decided that maybe, because of course 40 million is the budget of the movie. So you're now at the stage where Amazon go, well, we're going to put this on our platform. We're going to spend the marketing money, which could be another 40 million. So you're at that pivot point.
But they're going to put it in cinemas first, because this is clearly, this would have awards chances. As we know, this is a sort of, but
if you're Amazon at that moment, this is a moment where if you can press the jettison button, you are not paying for the second half of that. And more importantly, if you have relationships with OpenAI, which clearly they do, you are not having to use your platform to constantly promote this thing, and you're not having to have Amazon branding behind Ike Barinholtz and Andrew Garfield sitting there talking about the movie.
Some people have seen an early draft of this, so we should say a little bit more. It's obviously not a sort of hallmark hymn to Sam Altman, and people who've read early drafts, which will have changed, but as you say, if it's got dark out, it apparently portrays Sam Altman, as sort of intensely manipulative, a schemer, a sort of power hoarder, a monomaniac, etc. And there are lots of walk-ons for other people, even including people like the Microsoft CEO Satya Nadella. And I mean, there's just no way this can look good at all. And we have to think of it in the context of everything that has been happening recently. First of all, you think about that movie, The Apprentice, that starred Sebastian Stan as this sort of young Donald Trump and Jeremy Strong. That was going to be 100% in awards conversation, but it really struggled to get distribution, really struggled. Even though it was quite clearly going to pick up some awards, and it was nominated for, and it was going to be in all sorts of awards conversation. The problem is not with the creators. And a lot of people may think, these guys define our age. These guys are extraordinarily powerful. The problem is about them being tackled as subjects is absolutely not with writers and creatives. I personally know a number of people who have projects about these guys in development, and there are film and TV projects about the tech barons in development, all of them. We do know that The Social Reckoning is coming out.
Which is the follow-up to The Social Network. What Mark Zuckerberg did next.
Yes, and the trailer's out, and that's coming out in October. Aaron Sorkin, who has written and directed this time as well, said that, we haven't heard from anyone except their lawyers saying, just be careful. That's from Meta's lawyers. But we're yet to see any films about Peter Thiel in production. Even, he's extremely litigious. But he actually does literally believe in the Antichrist. So for me, seems like worth a shot at covering him creatively. This is a man whose companies are being knit tighter and tighter into the apparatus of a number of supposedly democratic states. I know so many people who've had projects, and it was really interesting. After the election of Trump in 2024, a lot of these companies, the big companies, called those people who had those projects and said, don't worry, we're still going to carry on with them. Okay, I haven't seen any of those projects come out.
Yeah.
They are not even greenlit. They're not. And a lot of those people, the studios are going to them, and these are not sort of small spec script writers. These are people with big overall deals who are tackling the big subjects, the big people of the age. People are saying to them, have you got anything that isn't about, Elon Musk or Peter Thiel or whoever it is?
Have you got a buddy cop movie?
Have you got something different? And it's really interesting. And that we've seen a few things. We saw Jesse Armstrong's Mountainhead, but that wasn't about specific, it was about
tech bros
generally about tech bros. They did it very quickly to be eligible for Emmy consideration and various things like that. But it's hard to say now that many of these things are coming to light. And here is one that has got all the way to that stage with an unbelievable, impeccable sort of creative team behind it. And they're just putting it out.
Can I present a counterpoint?
Yes.
A very brief counterpoint, which is we didn't used to do these fast turnaround movies about people who were still active quite so much. It didn't used to be a thing. There is an interesting moral place where writers are if they are writing about these people and these people who are heavily lawyered as well. And I don't think it's shocking that there aren't 10 films a year about Elon Musk and Mark Zuckerberg. I mean, I understand why writers want to write about them because they're unbelievable bogeymen and they are doing something extraordinary that's never been done before and they are doing it in plain sight, and yet a lot of what they're doing doesn't seem to have crossed over. But it is an unusual situation to be in. And if I were a business person, which, I am not...
You're not terrible at it.
And I was, I think it comes down to this. If Amazon had buried this, that would be a shock. If Amazon had funded this and buried it and said, no, well, it's our movie and we're not going to show it, but no one else can as well, that would be one thing. For them to say, they're holding their hands up and going, we have a deep personal relationship with the person this film is about.
They're not saying that, though.
Oh, no, but of course,
But it's quite obvious. Don't you care how history judges you? You just paid $75 million for an abysmal, to Brett Ratner and Melania for an abysmal documentary about her, but you can't put this out. Well, I'm sorry. What do you think history's going to say about you? Because I would be too embarrassed to do it.
Well, because they're not really a movie company. 75 million, 40 million, it's zero to them, essentially. Is
James Bond a movie franchise? Because they have that. I think they are a movie company.
That's the interesting one. It'd be interesting to see who the baddie is in the new James Bond movie.
I can tell you who he won't be. He will not be Chinese or North Korean. He will not be, because they are the executives are the Craven people. It is not the creatives.
But it is interesting that they are allowing the filmmakers to take it elsewhere. And it's had a huge amount of publicity, a lot more publicity than it would have done if they had shown it anyway. And, it's been shown across LA for the last week or so. It's interesting who is passing on it, because a lot of people have passed on it, if you believe the trade papers. A24 have passed on it. Netflix have passed on it. So whatever Amazon is worried about showing Sam Altman in that light or Elon Musk in that light, other people seem to be as well, because people are saying it's not a bad movie, but almost everybody is passing on it, and that's almost more depressing.
Yeah, I think what's to find another positive, these movies can be very influential. If you look at that portrait of Mark Zuckerberg from The Social Network, the first film, it was just incredibly influential as to how people saw him from then on. That, and he would dispute the account that actually the way it was created was born out of a night of incredible misogyny and rating women and all of this sort of stuff. But that stuck. And if anything, is sort of miraculously shaded into something even darker now, which I'm sure we'll see in the second film. But I think these films are influential. I think it's more depressing that they're doing this publicly. I really do. I think that they've become shameless. This is just the way things are now. We've seen all sorts of cavings to the Trump administration, and we're seeing just a massively increased tension between media companies and the tech firms and editorial independence everywhere from news to whatever. It will be interesting to see other test cases like, what if someone who's, traditionally regarded as brave or whatever, someone at HBO comes up with something, and it will be a test for Casey Bloys at the top of HBO to say, oh, we're going to do this. And, how will the Ellisons feel about this or that. And this will be a test of the new form of ownership of Warner's by Paramount, Skydance or whatever, and by the Ellisons. Will they cave? Will they do it? It's very difficult. People are caving to tech because tech is becoming increasingly woven into all of their systems, and they can't really exist without it. And they've all doing deals with OpenAI. And we talked about TBPM, which you know is a podcast I like, but it's basically been bought now by OpenAI as a form of PR arm for themselves. And I think that editorial independence is being eroded all the time. And this is, for me, the worst. That I would almost prefer it if they tried to do it, shamefully and in the background. Just saying openly that they're not doing it sends a chill win for me.
What happens, though, in this situation, if you are not able to go through these big main channels to make movies like this or to make art like this about the people who are running the world, one would hope that there's enough countercultural money or enough money that has not been tied up by OpenAI or people who are bending the knee to Trump. One would hope there's enough of that money. And
what counterculture? I mean, what counterculture? I don't see that there is one.
Yeah, but then there never is one until the culture changes. That's the point.
I don't think there is a financial counterculture. It's very, very hard. Why was it so hard for The Apprentice to find a distributor in it? I mean, it was an absolute uphill struggle for that. And it wasn't particularly expensive. It was very good. And they just couldn't seem to find anyone to take it on.
But even as you're saying that, all I'm thinking is, well, there's a gap in the market. And there's a very, very lucrative gap in the market. That's all I think. You might not be doing these through the legacy studios where something's costing you 75 million, but you can certainly, if Blumhouse wanted to do a horror, and
they should do a tech baron's horror.
But that feels to me like such an easy thing to do. I think when everything gets so calcified, when a culture gets so calcified and so in the hands of a very few people, which is exactly what's happened now, that's when the fight back begins. I always think that because creative people never change how they're creative. Creative people never change the sort of stories that they want to tell. It's just that at the moment, someone's not going to give them $40 million plus another $40 million in marketing to tell that story. So creativity is still creativity. It will find a way through the dam. The water finds its way through the concrete. And I just think that there's always a reaction to these things.
There is always a reaction, but you often have to live through a period of censorship or, self-censorship first. And I worry that we're sort of living through that period. In fact, we clearly are. It's just a different calculus when people are talking about, we can't make this project because of our cloud partnerships. I mean, this is something we haven't been thinking about before. But you can see it across all sorts of things. You can see it across late night, across news, across now in cinema. Lots of people are just stepping back or saying, well, we won't do that. We'll do... Because these firms have become so completely powerful within their own business.
Yeah.
Not just like they're outside people in the culture that we might not want to offend. They're so knit into the delivery of your services that you don't really have another choice.
Yeah.
Or they feel they don't.
And bullying works.
Yeah.
And not even bullying works. Sometimes they're complicit. That's the even scarier bit of it. But I do, I'm an appalling optimist, and I have to apologise for it almost weekly on this podcast. Sorry, everybody. But, I do think that kind of last swish of the dinosaur's tail sometimes is a real fillip for creativity and for where we go next in culture. And we live it's these absurd sort of end times that we live in as regards money and tech and art. I just don't think it can last. I think something else comes out of it that's interesting and intriguing. And if I was a 21-year-old at home at the moment who's a filmmaker or a writer or a creator of any sort, well, I know what I'd be thinking and I know what I'd be creating. And that's the next generation of art that we're going to get. So I
agree. And I do think that there are exciting things, or we can see already happening, that to co-opt the language of these tech firms, the disruptive.
Yeah.
So there's some really interesting disruptive creators in all sorts of different parts of the creative industries. But I'm not sure that they're politically disruptive so far.
Yes.
Maybe that will come, but I think they're creatively disruptive and I think they're doing all sorts of other interesting things, but I don't see it coming in a sort of political way. And I think that is, hopefully that will follow.
But we are 100% definitively in an era where American popular culture is under the yoke of about 5 people, all of whom are billionaires and all of whom have quite thin skins.
Yes, and it's interesting that so many people are moving away We should do something on China maxing in a future episode, because lots of the cultural pull is moving past even somewhere like Seoul, and it's just moving east. And I think that lots of interesting stuff, or just compelling stuff for young people, Gen Z, but particularly Gen A, is now coming from China. And I think that...
But of course, because of all this nonsense.
Where, of course, they have no censorship.
so more good news
you're
there.
right, there's plenty of cause for optimism.
Oh, the world. It never gets any better, really, does it?
Well,
Yeah. I suppose medical science advances.
Yes.
Yeah, that's good.
And AI will be very helpful in that, I'm sure.
Should we go for a break?
Let's.
And after that, we're going to be talking about whether Andy Burnham is cool or not. We're not going to be talking politics, we're going to be talking music. This episode is brought to you by the Lloyds 5K house deposit.
Lloyds are offering a 5K house deposit, which was last seen in 1996. What are your entertainment memories of the 1990s?
I feel guilty talking about the 1990s because you look back and it was such a golden era.
We'd never had it so good, and we didn't even realise, because we were young and we just thought we were entitled to it all.
We absolutely took it for granted. Britpop was absolutely in its pomp. Oasis playing to 250,000 people. You had Blur
Spice
and
Girls
Suede
and Girl
and Pulp.
Power. I'm so sorry.
Spice Girls. Amazing movies at the cinema, Trainspotting. I mean, it felt a time of absolute optimism, but at the time you just assumed that was the way that the,
a very
the world
British
was going.
type of optimism.
Yeah, and part of the optimism, of course, is that mortgages were more affordable, and that is what Lloyds is dealing with right now.
Yep, last seen in 1996, Lloyds are now offering 5K deposit mortgages to first-time buyers. Search 5K first-time buyer.
1996 average first-time buyer deposits based on ONS data. Subject to status, your home may be repossessed if you don't keep up repayments. Conditions apply. Welcome back, everybody. Now, listen, we move on from that fraught first half to ask a simple question, which is, are we about to have our first indie kid Prime Minister? Marina, for our overseas listeners, interesting developments in British politics at the moment.
Interesting and strangely familiar.
Yes.
We're going to have a new Prime Minister.
Yeah.
We're recording this on Monday, but as events advance, in due course, we will have a new Prime Minister. And unless something absolutely cataclysmic happens, that Prime Minister will probably be Andy Burnham.
It will. We're not going to talk about politics. Don't worry about that. I have a very specific thing that I wanted to explore, which is Andy Burnham cool? Now, I know you don't think anyone's cool, so actually what I'm going to say...
No, that's not true. You know that's not true.
Are we about to have our first indie kid Prime Minister? We've had all sorts of Prime Ministers on Desert Island this before, and political leaders. Cameron went on it. He chose a Smith song. He chose This Charming Man. He chose a Killer song. He chose a Radiohead song, Fake Plastic Trees. But he wasn't an indie kid. I mean, those are the ones you would choose if, you'd sat around with an advisor and decided which songs to choose. He's talked about loving Eton Rifles by The Jam as well, which imagine being Paul Weller and hearing that. Boris Johnson went on, he just pressure dropped by The Clash.
I know somebody who saw David Cameron at a party once, like sort of poker going to a town called Malice.
Oh, really?
Just like, sorry, you're just not allowed to do this.
I know, it's so, yeah.
You're banned off this.
Kemi Badenoch recently went on Desert Island Disc. She had a couple of songs from Hamilton. She had Don't Stop Till You Get Enough by Michael Jackson. Weirdly, she had Sunscreen by Baz Luhrmann as well as one of her Desert Island Discs. But anyway, Andy Burnham. Andy Burnham makes quite a lot of this kind of, I'm just, this indie kid from the north. Is he posing or is that for real? Now, my evidence is he did a wonderful piece. I don't know if people know The Quietus. The very fact that he did this piece with The Quietus at all tells us already he's got bona fides. If you are looking for something to subscribe to, The Quietus is very, very, very good on music and culture, and it introduces you to new things all the time. They do curated playlists, and anyway, they do a feature called Baker's Dozen where people choose their favourite 13 albums. So all the evidence we're going on for Andy Burnham is his 13 favourite albums and the stories he tells on each one. Shall we go through a few of them and see if Andy Burnham is actually cool or not? I've made my mind up already, but we'll go through them. He was born in the same year as me, Andy Burnham, and the further you go down this list, the more obvious that becomes. He's got Beatles in there. He's got Smith's Hatful of Hollow, which was the year zero of turning from a kid who likes Culture Club into being an indie kid. That's the album that did it for everyone. Andy Burnham's got that on his list. But then he goes for, this is where I start thinking, oh, this guy's for real. He goes to Rum, Sodomy and the Lash by the Pogues, their second album, which I think is one of the greatest albums ever written. He says he wants Sickbed of Colcullen played at his funeral, which is... I'd say it's a bold choice, Andy, but you absolutely go for it. But the definitive thing with Rum, Sodomy and the Lash by the Pogues is if you are Andy Burnham's special advisor, you wouldn't say, and by the way, at number 3, I put Rum, Sodomy and the Lash by the Pogues.
No, I believe all of this. There's no, you can't talk about them in the way that he has talked about them without absolutely it being completely real and authentic. We're going to come later to whether even things that are authentic can seem inauthentic in the world of politics, but I 100% believe all of this.
He goes for the Stone Roses. I mean, Andy Burnham could not be more northwest if he tried. I think he's from Liverpool, was an MP in Lee, was Mayor of Manchester. So I think very cleverly, almost uniquely, manages to have a foot in both of those camps. So
he's created this kind of overarching northern identity that somehow managed to bring them together. Yeah.
Imagine if he'd done that for a southern identity. Imagine how much the country would absolutely hate him. They go, this guy goes, you know what? I'm a little bit Guildford and a little bit Godalming. Yeah. That's me, and that's Andy. So when he talks about the Stone Roses, which is his 4th album, which again you can't be an indie kid in any way whatsoever and not have the first Stone Roses album on there. But he talks about how he used to go to the Hacienda.
Yeah, but on the Thursday, not the Friday.
The Thursday, which was student night. Saturday was like the big rave night. And he says, I was very much Thursday night. I was a lager guy. They said, did you take ecstasy? He said, I'm not being a politician. I genuinely didn't. But we are about to get our first indie kid prime minister, I think. It'll be a while before we get our first rave prime minister. But that'll be next. But he said. I
think you'll find David Cameron went to a few parties.
Listen,
I wouldn't dignify him with rave.
There's no more indie statement than I saw the fall at the Hacienda. It's absolutely impossible. He also said, and I don't think there's 2 words in this put together. I don't think a single British Prime Minister has ever said before, and that is, he said, talking about the Hacienda, there would be a few members of Inspiral Carpets hanging around. I don't think anyone who's ever been British Prime Minister has ever referenced Inspiral Carpets before. He also talks about meeting Tony Wilson when he was up in Manchester and how they developed quite a close relationship. And Tony Wilson, before Andy Burnham was the King of the North, was probably the King of the North. And I saw Andy Burnham described the other day as Harold Wilson meets Tony Wilson, which I thought was very nice. He then goes, here's where we know for a fact that we are going to have an indie kid prime minister. His next album is George Best by The Wedding Present. And again, to find out the age of a tree, you cut it down and count the rings. If you want to know the age of a certain man or woman in this country, and they say one of my favourite albums is Wedding Present, is George Best by Wedding Present, then they were born in 1970. You can almost to the month work it out. By the way, a great album. He then goes on to, talking of great albums, The Lars by The Lars. Yeah. Liverpool band, but to be someone who recognises that the Lars aren't just There She Goes, and to recognise they released one of the great debut albums in the history of music. We should do like a bonus on the Lars, because they were amazing.
Yeah.
Billy Bragg.
Yes.
That's an interesting choice. William Bloke, the album he's gone for, and he says Upfield is his favourite song. Because, he's very polarising. And again, if you were Andy Burnham's spad, you'd be saying, I don't know, or are you sure about Billy Bragg? But one of our most tender and beautiful songwriters. Yeah. I think.
You might have thought, chuck one out for the Corbynites.
Yeah, exactly. Radiohead, OK Computer. I love all the way through this interview in the Quietus. It's so good because he's saying, I saw Radiohead at Glastonbury. He said, and it's just after I lost the leadership election to Corbyn, and you realise that this music, which is sort of the music of your kind of teen years or 20s, or literally these people who've been in the middle of like the hugest stories in British politics are sitting there listening to Karma Police, and you're thinking, wow, those lyrics must hit a bit different if you're trying to run the country. Strokes he goes for. There's a few more modern things. Big Thief, Capacity, which is an amazing album. There's New Order, but the one I really, really loved is the Cortinas and Falcon. So the Cortinas are huge, one of those bands that the North absolutely, they're like the gods of the North. Yeah. And he said when he was running for Manchester Mayor, him and Steve Rotherham, who was Mayor of Liverpool, they went to see the Cortinas. And he said there's this song where he says, the lyrics are, "I'm only a paper boy from the Northwest, but I can scrub up well in my Sunday best." And he said that really it felt like me, because I was, that sounds like me. So we were sort of belting this song out, and it really made us feel proud to be from the North. And, it's this great guitar music. But that is from a song called, this interview is about 2 years ago, and that's from a song called "Take Over the World." And Andy Burnham said, "I love that song and it brings back memories, but sadly I didn't go on to take over the world." Well, look at you now, Andy.
Well, there's a suggestion that you can never be cool as a politician.
Yes, it's an impossibility.
I think it is you can be charismatic, and that
Yes.
really matters. And someone like David Runciman's written really interesting on politicians who are sort of required to be a form of celebrity, but also still be trustworthy. It's interesting, actually, when I was talking to James Canigastorium about celebrities becoming politicians, one of the things we talked about is that because we cycle through these people so quickly now, politicians, celebrities are these kind of great constants in public life.
Yeah.
And so in many ways, they are seen as more trustworthy than politicians. And what Andy Burnham has actually genuinely tried to do is create an outsider status for himself, which, by the way, I think coolness it's very, very hard to be cool when you are the figurehead of a system.
For sure.
You being an outsider is cool. It involves not having to compromise and to be able to dream impossible dreams, whereas politics, I suppose, is the art of the possible and all about compromising. So you can't be
cool. But one thing you can do, and again, you talked to James about it, one thing that is absolutely key is, can you be authentic? And I thought the interesting thing going through this list is, so Andy has this kind of image of himself as I'm just a normal guy and I drink lager and this is the sort of music I like. This interview in The Quietus and this list in The Quietus absolutely 100% screams to me authenticity.
I completely agree with you. I think it's interesting, and actually it's quite a niche thing, and we're talking about it because we love all those things. We love music and things like that. The more mainstream things that politicians will try and even authentically attach themselves to. I mean, if you look at Keir Starmer, he plays five-a-side football once a week. He really loves football. He is a completely authentic football fan. He cannot basically hardly even talk about football because football
he genuinely cares about it.
Because we're in the middle of the World Cup, it's really interesting. Cass Horowitz, who is a sort of comms guru. He was a comms guru for Rishi Sunak. He did a post on LinkedIn just before the World Cup started saying, politicians, please just don't post about the World Cup this summer. And he said that talking about football has become the ultimate high stakes authenticity trap because the public immediately assume it's a calculated focus group play to neutralise your elite narrative and prove that you are a regular person. And it's really... Honestly, anytime, even politicians who absolutely love football, you'll know it used to happen much more. Just try and stay away from it to some degree because it just always looks like bandwagoning. And strange as it may seem, we literally do not need to know, or certainly don't care what cabinet minister thinks about football. I noticed Farage was doing. He is, by the way, I want to talk about him actually because I think he's in terms of his cultural hinterland. I believe it is. I mean, I talk about the tech, I've talked about the tech barons not having one. He has absolutely nothing. I once interviewed him, and just honestly for something, I think I've talked about this in the podcast before, but I'm going to mention it again because I think it is so weird. I said to him, "What's your favorite? What's your favorite film?" And he literally just couldn't. What was clear is not that he couldn't think what his favorite film would be or what would be a good film to be his favorite film. He couldn't think of the title of a film. And in the end, he said, "What that guy, the person?" And then he remembered 4 Weddings and a Funeral, but for some reason he obviously didn't want to say that. So he said, the guy who did that. So I said, "Richard Curtis." I was like, "Love Actually." He's like, "Yeah, Love Actually." I was thinking, there's just no way that your favourite film is Love Actually. There's just no way. But also the fact that you couldn't even think of it. I mean, just say The Great Escape or Dambusters or something.
Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, come on.
That's easy.
He literally couldn't think of one. I believe he has zero cultural hinterland at all. I can't imagine. I think there's some discourse about like, why isn't he on Desert Island Discs? What would he authentically choose? You're telling me that guy ever listens to music, ever watches anything? It doesn't exist. He doesn't have that. If you cannot name a film, as in you literally can't think of the name of a film, it's ridiculous. And so for him, I think the idea of having... Whereas for someone like Obama, now Obama knew had a mega cultural hinterland and they became sort of curators. Even during the time he would put out stuff of what he was listening to. Was he cool? I don't know. I mean, he was probably the person who most people thought had, as a politician, had something closer to cool than anyone else.
If he isn't cool, and I don't think he quite is, then it is impossible for a politician to be cool. So his curated music lists are always extraordinary. So I think the most recent has Kendrick Lamar, Chapel Rowan, Rosalia, Burna Boy is on there. I mean, absolutely. But again, so beautifully curated. You kind of think, is there more than one hand in this? I don't know. There's a little bit of everything. I quite like Andy Burnham's list because there's sort of not a little bit of everything in there. It's really just kind of this and then this and then this and then this. I think that if Barack Obama is not cool, then no one's ever going to be cool and be a politician.
Some people found him cool all the way through. And of course, once the bits that people couldn't get quite so much on board with, like extrajudicial killings and so on, have faded into the background and worse has replaced it or whatever, then people have a sort of glow about him. But he could deliver lines brilliantly. So when he did things like the White House Correspondents' Dinner, and he would do, it was like watching a stand-up. Obviously, he was a great public speaker, but I remember there was one time when I think he did literally just drop the mic at the end of it, and you're like, okay, that's really extremely professional and well done.
But I do think, and again, this is not talking about politics at all, but I do think that the one thing you need in the current media climate is authenticity. And I just thought it was interesting looking at that list of albums and thinking, well, certainly in this area, he has an authenticity. He has an ability to talk with an authenticity. He has, and don't forget, some people just aren't authentic. Some people never find out who they are. And this is a guy who does seem to have a good idea of who he is. And if you can get that across, then it will serve him very well. But
the Lars versus the bond market. So I can't wait to find out who wins.
Do you know what? Genuinely, I'd put my money on the Lars. Knowing Lee Mavers, I think I can absolutely see it. Actually, on that album, I Owe You, there's a lot about monetary policy in there. If you only know the Lars from There She Goes, then, my God, have a listen to that whole album. It's just a work of genius. He disowned it. Lee Mavers, he went through every great producer there was and just said, no, this is all terrible. This is not what I'm hearing in my head. And even now says that album is awful. But he is wrong about that. No, it's an extraordinary record. And that authenticity means that I can definitively answer the question, are we about to have our first indie kid prime minister? Yes, I believe we are. Yes. He has all the bona fides. He has the credentials. I'm not, by the way, making a valid judgment and saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying as a 1980s and 90s indie kid myself, he is definitely one.
It's a true thing.
It's a true thing.
Okay, moving on from Andy Burnham, Quentin Tarantino, I love it when he pops up,
yes,
has made another foray into the discourse to say that there have been no good movies. This was a couple of weeks ago. He said there are no good movies since the lockdown, since the pandemic. And he said they were all defined, movies since then, by flaws, implausibilities, audience pandering, miscast performers, or just plain stupid shit, okay? I personally love that he's out there talking about it. I love all the positions he takes. He always sparks something, and we'll get on to what he sparks in a minute. Yeah. He does always spark something. He's always said, I'm only going to make 10 films. I personally wish he'd do more. I absolutely love it. Yeah. You know what he's doing next, though, which I could not be more here for.
Yes, a play, right?
He's going to write and direct a West End farce set in the 1830s called The Popinjay Cavalier. Yeah. And he's doing it with Sonia Friedman, the fantastic theatre producer, and also Sony. So there's some suggestion that, Sony Pictures, if it takes off, then maybe he'll turn that into his final film.
And it's for real. And they're doing table reads at the moment as we speak. So it is definitely for real.
Oh, I know. I am all over that. Okay, and I love that he takes these strong positions, whatever you think about him. And he certainly he puts stuff out there. I don't think he's right. I mean, look at what's happening in horror. Look, there's been lots of good things.
By the way, he doesn't think he's right either.
He doesn't think he's right. It's just some stupid shit he said.
Exactly.
But Gen Z are going to the theatres. We're having a sort of correction from franchise IP in the way that all of these things he would like. And I think that streaming, in a way, TV, and obviously lots of people migrated to television, but television is now so expensive, paradoxically, that a series is going to cost, I don't know, 120 million. You've got to make lots of them. That in a way, I think it's an interesting time and a time of flux, and I disagree that there have been no good films since the pandemic. Yeah. Do we have to do this top three? Which I do.
Well, I've got a top three of my favourite films since the pandemic. Okay, yes. Do you have a top three?
I do. One is a bit of a cheat, but yes.
Cheat how? Well, listen, we'll get to it. Okay, number three.
Okay, number three.
You see, I have to say the numbers now, just because I absolutely don't trust you.
Even now, is Nope, which it had a terrible title. But it is in the horror genre. It's Jordan Peele. It's actually really good, and it's a shame. It's not completely clear what it is, but it's all about us not filming things and not being able to look away even when it's dangerous. It's really good, and it epitomises that. Number 2, I really absolutely loved The Souvenir Part 2, and this is a bit of a small one because lots of people won't have seen this, but if you haven't seen Joanna Hogg's work, The Souvenir itself is amazing. This is a sequel to it. It's a sort of semi-autobiographical story about a young filmmaker, and The Souvenir Part 2 is amazing. And number 1, I am going to say Barbenheimer. And I know that's unfair, but what I want to say is...
that's fine. That's okay.
But it's because what it showed us
the moment of it.
Look at this extraordinary thing. It is a possibility that rose up organically as a phenomenon, but here is someone making a film about something extreme. I mean, it's Christopher Nolan. The director is the star. He's making something extremely... you're making a film about the Manhattan Project. And then also, here is a movie effectively made in the service of a toy company, but nonetheless manages to be kind of staggeringly original and cool and bring masses of people to the theatre. So I would say that both of those, and the phenomenon of them being yoked together, was very, very cool, and it showed you of a whole range of possibilities within filmmaking.
So Nope, Souvenir Part 2, Barbenheimer.
In some order, but I'll do it in that order.
Well, that's the order you've done it.
I know,
so
that's fine.
So your favourite film was Barbenheimer?
Okay, I'm going to say that.
Of those 3.
But because of what it represented, yes. But actually, probably Souvenir Part 2.
I'm going to go for 3 sort of comedies in a way, but all sort of bittersweet comedies. Rye Lane is my number 3, the Rain Alan Miller movie, the sort of South London rom-com with David Johnson, written by Nathan Bryan and Tom Mellier. It's a really, really, really funny, cute, charming, beautifully made movie that you just think, oh, how lovely to see something so perfectly formed. I've yet to meet anyone who didn't enjoy it. Number 2, I'm going to go for The Holdovers, the Alexander Payne movie, Paul Giamatti, where he's sort of, I think it's set in the early 1970s, and he's a teacher who has to look after all the kids who
at a boarding school
who don't go home for Christmas. In fact, it's just one kid in the end, and it's again really, really, really beautiful movie. And number 1, it won't surprise you, I haven't gone for Barbenheimer. I've gone for The Ballad of Wallace Island.
I knew you were going to
Tom Baston and Tim Key. It's such a beautiful, funny film. But there's 3 films there, none of which outstay their welcome, all of which have just beautiful writing, beautiful performances.
None of which costs crazy amounts of money at all.
And I absolutely get what Tarantino says, because he has a very visceral approach to filmmaking. He wants something new and spectacular, and something that shocks him and surprises him. And none of these movies would do that to him. But all of these movies, if you're a writer or if you have any sort of love in your heart, I think you would enjoy all 3 of them.
Okay, so now to get on to what it sparked. Obviously, the minute he says something like this, everyone's like, great, this is a hook for us to publish lots of lists of things that are actually good, like we've just done. But what I want to say about that and this new idea of these lists coming out all the time, this is now like a genre, a vertical. It is an entire permanently reiterating editorial product. Really interesting appointment very recently. The New York Times has appointed someone called Gilbert Cruz to be their head of canon. Now, he used to run the book review section. There's a very small... Some people say, oh, maybe he didn't do so well in the book review section. Is he being sort of moved aside? But actually... this is a whole new job. They've never had a head of canon before. Now, in terms of what is canon...
It's like the Civil War.
Yeah, I know. The word itself has been invented, it's gone over many, many times. It started actually in the 1300s, where canon meant the collection of books of the Bible that were accepted by the Christian church as genuine and inspired. By the 20th century, it sort of meant the classics. And fandoms talk about canon, you know, the sort of body of works taking place in their particular fictional world that they count, you know. And that started really... The Manchester Guardian, apparently in 1933, had said, oh, just because a story contains the word elementary, my dear Watson, it doesn't mean it's part of the official Sherlock Holmes canon. And, you know, you've got all these fandoms talk about Star Wars. Is this canon? Is this just off canon? Whatever it is. But the New York Times has appointed someone for this to do this job permanently, which seems odd. But these lists now form a huge amount of what you read online. And we used to have lists. They didn't exist in the same way. We would have power lists. You know, people do a media power list like once a year, but it was kind of niche. It was almost industry, or you'd get trade publications doing them, or you'd get, you know, the Sunday Times rich list. Then you'd have the listicle era, BuzzFeed and all those sort of things. But it is now one of the most important things in digital media. And it's happened very, very quickly. And you'll notice this happens all the time. And what they are really saying, the New York Times, is that the most successful products, cultural products that they produce, are not criticism any longer. They are these giant definitive lists, these proprietary rankings of books or films or restaurants or whatever it is.
I'm all in favour.
Yeah, and it's become a huge market mover. You know, these books, if once they say, you know, the top 50 books of the century or whatever it is, they reprint with that on the cover. They're not just quick listicles. You'll notice that something's changed. It's not just a kind of quick thing. You've got to get buy-in from all your biggest critics and from, you know, say you're doing movies, you get directors to cut it, and you show, this was the panel that chose this.
Yeah.
But what you're creating there is something, first of all, they're obviously saying this is one of our most important business products that we create. And what you're saying as well is this is an evergreen piece of updatable content. Yeah. They are a mass market content format now, and they do so much better than reviews. Every time, The Guardian does this a lot. You'll notice that they have, you know, the 20 best somethings ranked, and those always perform incredibly well. Furthermore, they last longer. They're sort of evergreen. They sit on your site, and people come back to them, and they use them as a form of curation. And that thing that we keep talking about, taste, and how taste is becoming in such a sort of noisy and crowded world, really important. These kind of big legacy media brands are moving increasingly into these things where you can keep updating the list and you can change it and it can become, but these are the most significant cultural products they produce, not criticism and reviews any longer.
Yeah, because you know we have enough enough canon now in various different areas that the new has become slightly less interesting and less important, and actually just constant ways of dipping into the old, I think, is fascinating. I did that Guardian top 100 books thing where you had to do your 10 favourite books, and of it when they put it out, the comments underneath were just, they go, oh my god, where's this, where's X? And actually, funnily enough, the Guardian had done it in quite a smart way. They got loads and loads of writers, Stephen King, all sorts of people did it, and not only could you look at the top 100, but you could click on any person you wanted and read their top 10 and read their comments about it. So people say, where's X, where's Y? You think, well, go and look in some of the lists. You don't have to just look at the top 100. That's literally just, everyone's votes are put together. That's why Middlemarch is number one. I know you think it's boring, but like a lot of writers, for whatever reason, don't think it's boring. And like my top 10, I have Middlemarch on it, but there was only 2 of my top 10 were in the top 100. So, but you can click on mine and look through my favourite 10 books, and that's useful to people. I know. I mean, I'm someone who will always buy the book that's out this week, but most people want to look back through 200 years of literature and go, what shouldn't I read?
What I should do, please.
When the New York Times did its best books of the 21st century, and I looked through that, and that's where I discovered Lonesome Dove, or that's when I realised, actually I really should read Lonesome Dove, and I've been banging on about how brilliant that is, and that was, funny enough, in my top 10. And someone said to me, why is everyone talking about Lonesome Dove all of a sudden? And I think, well, because it was in that list. It's a really, really good way of rediscovering things. It's a really good way of discovering things that maybe kind of passed you by a bit. And if you look at writers like, Barbara Pym, for example, who's been, rediscovered her brilliant things for the second time. But, a lot of that is from lists. A lot of that is from people saying, what are the 10 most overlooked novels? Who are the 10 writers we should read?
Not everyone wants to say The Great Gatsby. Sometimes people would like to say...
Yeah, you want to recommend things that you think actually, or maybe people won't know this. I love a list.
The search traffic stays so gold for the publishers who are publishing these things,
because people say, what are the best books of all time?
Can you help me out here? So it's really interesting that these lists have actually become enormous and huge, and that's not going to be the last head of canon, you see.
Yeah, well, funny enough, he sent me an email which I thought was spam. So Gilbert Cruz is the guy's name.
Yeah, Gilbert Cruz.
Yeah, asking about the best crime novels of all time. I thought it was spam. And
you better dig it out of your inbox.
Gilbert, I apologise. I had not realised that. But it also leads me on neatly to, I'm doing some bonus episodes, which are essentially what is the best ever
I love this.
US sitcom, what's the best ever UK game show. But I'm doing it in my traditional, World Cup of thing. I'll have a couple of guests on. We'll talk about, all the best things there possibly are, and find a winner. The first one we're doing is US sitcoms. What's the best ever US sitcom? And because the great James Burrows passed away this week, who directed Friends and Frasier
Yeah.
and Cheers. I mean, and it did more than direct those
Yeah.
things as well. So we're going to find John Robbins and Maisie Adam are joining me. We're going to find the greatest US sitcom. That one I think we're going to make free to everyone.
Yes.
After that, it's for members.
Oh, I'm
which
dying
people
for that.
Yes, I think it's going to be an awful lot of fun. Listen, I mean, we talked about authenticity just now. I cannot be authentic without saying I love a list. I love putting things against each other and seeing what wins.
Well,
I
so
live
does
for
the
it.
market.
Yeah, so does the World Cup.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Recommendations?
Do you know what? Ingrid is filming at the moment, and she is I can't say what in, but she's being an astronaut, and so we've been watching lots of astronaut things just to see what they're like when they're when they're in their craft. And we watched Return to Space, which is about the growth of SpaceX, and I absolutely loved it. It's really, really extraordinary. There's quite a lot of Elon Musk in it, and actually there's quite a lot of Elon Musk acting like a human being in it and showing some emotion, but also sort of showing what it is that he's achieved there. But the main thing about it is the astronauts and the people behind the scenes, the technicians and the people who work on this stuff. It makes you realise what an extraordinary endeavour going to space is, and what a team you need to do that. So I absolutely love that, Return to Space, and that's on Netflix. I thought it was absolutely fascinating. I loved it. How about you?
Oh my God, I can't believe the pettiness of mine compared to the
great.
epic of that. Okay. I want to recommend a trailer which I sent to you on your holiday, and I sincerely hope you watched. Please, can you just everyone watch the trailer for a new National Geographic docudrama, maybe?
Yeah.
Which I think is going to be on Disney Plus, in which Tom Hiddleston is playing time detective to go back and solve the mystery of the final hours of Pompeii. I think it's called Pompeii Out of Time. I'm going to find a way of making you do a full item on it, because it's if you are a ironic admirer of Tom Hiddleston's intensity, as I am, there is so much to enjoy in this trailer that I just want, do your homework, guys, and then we can talk. And I'm just going to find a way of forcing it. And the other thing I would like to recommend
You're
is,
not just going to recommend a trailer.
No, I'm going to recommend Roy Keane's rant on. He was asked by Gary Neville on the Overlap, their podcast, to put something into sort of Football Room 101, and he chose wags who put their husbands' names on the back of the shirt and then photograph themselves with it. It's so special. Judge Roy Keane has allowed that for the children of players. He was like, "We know who you're married to. You'll be separated within a year." I love you, Roy Keane. I love you. It's very special.
Roy Keane is sort of the Quentin Tarantino of football, isn't he?
Absolutely.
Yeah. So our bonus episode this week, Marina,
is the final episode of the Vibe Shift, the series I did with James Canigasori, and it's about the sort of end of peak woke and where things are going now. It's really interesting.
And if you want to be a member, it's therestlessentertainment.com. You get all those bonus episodes, you get ad-free listening, all of that stuff. As always, you do not have to be a member. And for everyone else, we will see you for a Q&A on Thursday.
See you on Thursday.